for his family. He died, so it's time to collect the life insurance, right? And this is like, valued at like more than $1 million. This is 1970.
So like $6 million now.
Yeah, or $1 billion or something like that. So all they had to do was collect that money. But there was a hitch. There was a fly in the ointment.
Yeah, they didn't quite get that. So tragedy would hit the family again 10 years later when another fire would destroy a shack that was it owned by the Roberts family?
It was, it was down in Camp Roberts. Anybody here heard about Camp Roberts? Southeast, about 3 miles southeast of Nashville, Indiana, a little place that's mostly owned by the Roberts family, apparently, and the family and the shack was owned by her nephew.
Okay, I knew somebody in the family owned it.
Yeah, she was staying there rent free.
So
apparently.
the Roberts' shack.
Yeah,
another
Roberts family
building.
owned that
yes.
shack. Yeah,
another one burns down. This time, however, there are 2 bodies. Wow, that was loud. The first body was identified as Geneva Roberts, Clarence's wife. And the second body was identified as that of Clarence Roberts.
Dun, dun, dun.
totally.
No? Ah. Hi.
Hey. Hey.
What's up?
I didn't know we had service up here.
Yeah,
This is awesome.
It's great. Sorry,
I thought I
everyone.
would do this and use their water instead of my water.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, good.
Okay. You guys wanted an unedited show, right?
Yes, we're asked for this
Great.
all the time, so this is what you get. So as we said, this life insurance policy they had tried to collect, the family had, but the insurance company had decided that there were some things wrong that made them not believe that it was gonna be actually be Clarence's body. So Geneva didn't get any of the money, so she was left essentially penniless at that point. They, had to sell the family home. The cars were repossessed, or I think the brothers that owned them actually took them back for some of those cars.
Yeah, one of them was taken back by his creditors. I talked to a lawyer who knew the Roberts, and he told me this story about they were in court, and Clarence was being confronted by one of his creditors. And suddenly the creditor's lawyer says, "Clarence, how'd you get here today?" And Clarence said, "I drove." And the lawyer turned to the judge and said, "Your Honor, we want that car." And so the judge made Clarence hand over the keys to his Cadillac right there in court. And that's how deep in. Clarence was living beyond his means, way beyond his means.
And Uber wasn't a thing yet.
No.
So
yeah, and so
getting home was not fun.
A humiliating moment for poor Clarence Roberts.
Yes. Well, and especially for Geneva, because she and the family had been trying to collect on the insurance for now 10 years and hadn't got it. So at this point, she has to take a job. She is working at the Howard Johnson's. I believe she's working in the kitchen washing dishes.
Yeah.
Or baking pies. I've heard that story too.
Okay. Her children abandoned her. The entire family shunned her. So she was on her own at that point.
So we're going to play this one a little fast and loose. And we're going to try to add to the story as we talk about theories.
That doesn't mean we're going to make stuff up. But
Well,
by
we
adding,
never do that.
Yeah,
Maybe
no,
a little.
We wouldn't do that.
So I'm just going to, I'm hosting, so we've got some bullet points here. I'm going to go ahead and just talk about the high level of what the theories might be, and then we're going to get into it. Sound good?
Sounds good.
So we need to talk about Clarence. We need to talk about if he died in the first fire or the second fire.
Mm-hmm.
There are people out there, by the way, who still believe Clarence did die in the first fire.
Yep. We need to talk about Clarence and if he set the first fire or the second fire or neither or both. And we need to talk about if he didn't die in the first fire, where did he go? And then we need to talk about Geneva because it seems like she should have known about this, right?
You would think.
But maybe not. So let's talk about this.
Sweet.
First theory would be Clarence died in the first fire.
Yeah. This does not have a lot of subscribers.
Yeah.
Well, there's a really, really good reason. I don't know if we had talked about the fact that when the body was found, we'd said that, there was no limbs. It's believed that those were burned off. I know, Joe, through your conversations with, was it the prosecutor?
Yeah, I was actually lucky enough to track down a guy named James T. Roberts, who says he's no relation to Clarence, but he was a county prosecutor in 1970 when this happened. He told me there's stories on the internet that somebody actually chopped off the arms and legs from the body and then put it in the barn and set the fire. But
And
he
you
said
will
those
see
are-
where it says there's
Yeah.
like wound or marks on the bones.
Yeah,
Apparently,
apparently that's not true, according to somebody who was there, and he claims to know everything there is to know about this case.
Well, he was the prosecutor.
Yeah, he should know everything
should
about
know.
it. Yeah.
but the thing about the body is, yeah, it's got no arms and legs, so theoretically the fire is so intense that it would have burned them off. There was also talk of a shotgun being found near the body, so it's believed, okay, he set the fire maybe, but he also must have tried to commit suicide by using the weapon on himself.
But there was a problem.
There was no gunshot wound in the body. There's an issue.
Come on, dude.
That raised the first red flags for the coroner, yeah.
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 Yeah. So I guess I really just don't understand even how it plays out that he died in the first fire.
Yeah, I guess you would have to say that is Clarence backs the truck up into the barn, lights the barn on fire, and with the attempt of then he's going to use the gun on himself. I mean, this whole series of events, did that make any sense to anybody else? Because it doesn't to me.
No.
So that's
And
why
the
it's so
ring,
strange.
right? It was undamaged. If the fire was hot enough to burn his limbs off,
That was a bit of a red
the
flag.
ring
yeah.
on the finger should be damaged, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the coroner actually did an autopsy, believe it or not, and they found out that the body had a huge level of CO2, or not CO, carbon monoxide in the bloodstream, enough to be fatal, and yet no evidence of inhalation, smoke inhalation at all. The lungs were all clean and pink, so that was a little bit suspicious. And let's see what else.
Blood type?
Oh, there was a blood type. Yeah, that didn't match. And then they found one tooth, and that didn't really match Clarence either.
It was also, wasn't it missing a kidney or?
I heard that in one place. I'm not going to totally swear by that one, but supposedly the body was missing a kidney, and Clarence had both his kidneys.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if
No
it
evidence.
wasn't Clarence's body dead in the barn,
Well, who could
was
it have been?
it?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the vagrant?
I can talk about the vagrant.
Talk about the
Talk about vagrants all the time. So there's two versions of this story, but it is said that Clarence met a vagrant a town away, right, Joe? It was not actually in the town he lived in.
No, the town
No,
in the
Clarence
north,
would not be that dumb.
He was still dumb, but yeah, he didn't quite. Yeah.
Okay, so there is a vagrant, and either Clarence met him in a bar and poured so much liquor into him that when they walked out, the guy started falling down, and Clarence said, "I'm going to take him to get help." Or the other version of the story is that Clarence met this vagrant, he collapsed on the street having some sort of medical condition, and Clarence says, "I'll get my car, I'll take him to a doctor." There's no record of Clarence ever showing up in front of any doctor with this man. So there's the big first red flag about the vagrant.
Oh, the vagrant also, by the way, was, according to witnesses, had a brown plaid shirt on. Mm-hmm. Aye. And then it turns out that
Why is the brown shirt important?
the brown shirt's important.
Yeah, why is that important?
Why is that? Well, I will tell you why. The body was, even though it was badly burned, it was laying against the pavement, and so
dirt?
Or the dirt. I don't know. Was that a dirt floor in there or a paved floor? We don't care. We'll just assume it was something or the other. But
We'll just call it the floor.
yeah, apparently it got enough heat protection that a fragment of the shirt actually survived the fire. It turns out it was brown plaid. Clarence's cousin had stopped by to visit him like about 15 minutes before the fire actually broke out. And he said that Clarence was wearing a blue shirt, not a brown plaid shirt. So, well, that looked a little funny to the authorities. And so people, even though Clarence's family was swearing, and actually one pathologist was pretty sure it was Clarence also. But
that maybe seems really wrong.
well, it does, because, I mean, after all, I mean, how do you gas yourself and then start a fire? I mean, how do you do that? Exactly. I don't know, because the body should have succumbed totally to smoke inhalation, or excuse me, CO2. Not even
Carbon
CO2.
monoxide?
Carbon monoxide. Damn it. You people are making me nervous. Cut it out.
Or just close your eyes, turn around.
Everybody look that way.
Okay, so we're pretty sure that Clarence did not die in that first fire, right?
Yeah, everybody's
Yeah.
pretty sure, except
Yeah.
for a few people. Like I said, his sons, still contend, at least most of his sons, his family, they have a grave, actually, I think, with the original corpse buried in it and marked Clarence Roberts. So
Yeah, well,
they're
they're
still
$6 million
contending.
lighter since it wasn't.
Well, not lighter, but, they're not.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not $6 million heavier
So,
like they would have preferred.
Do you think Geneva knew that it wasn't Clarence?
Do
you think she was in on it from the beginning?
I was kind of thinking it was Geneva, although when I talked to James Roberts about it, again, he was the one, more than me and more than the internet, who actually knew these two. And she was actually very sure that Geneva was not involved in any of this scheme. Because,
the first one.
At least in the beginning. At some point, of course, it appears that Clarence did come back to town. He actually absconded with a fair amount of cash, and at some point he must have run out of money, is the thinking, and he came back to Geneva. She took him back in, and at that point, of course, she becomes complicit, because I didn't mention that there was a grand jury in 1975 that indicted Clarence on charges of kidnapping and murder for the murder of this vagrant. And so he was a wanted man. Local police were looking for him. They were staking out Geneva's home from time to time. So at that point, she became complicit, but he's very sure that she was not actually part of this conspiracy at the beginning.
With. Right.
Yeah.
So Clarence would have then placed the ring himself?
Probably Clarence put it in there himself, came back after the fire was done. And
after the volunteer firefighters left for the night?
Yeah, that's the thing. Clarence may not have been as smart as he thought he was.
Maybe.
I think, yeah. And one of the things that screwed Clarence up is that he had a pickup truck, as I mentioned, that the firefighters saved, and he had rigged it up as kind of a rolling gas chamber. He'd plugged the tailpipe, and he'd taken what appeared to be a hammer and a punch and punched a bunch of holes in the tailpipe. And the firefighters saved the truck from the fire. It was actually inside there. It should have been consumed by the fire, but these firefighters show up and they roll the truck out of there and save it. Later on, somebody discovered that a lot of carbon monoxide was leaking into the cab of the truck. And so that's when they looked at the tailpipe and discovered it had been punctured all over the place. I think Clarence probably intended for the truck to be consumed in the flames of the fire, but that didn't happen. So you got to ask yourself, why do you have a little rolling gas chamber? He didn't need it to gas himself inside a closed garage, obviously.